This is my all-time favorite book that I have talked about a gazillion times by now, but it is Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson. And I'm just going to read you some quotes that I really like. I have a video where I actually read this book, which I'll just link in the description in case you are interested, but I'm just going to read you the things that I have underlined and give you some context, I guess. But this is the first page, and I think it's very powerful. The barber shop was strangely quiet. Only the dull buzz of clippers shearing soft scalps. That was before the barber caught you watching her reflection in the mirror as he cut her hair, and saw something in her eyes too. He paused and turned towards you, his dreads like thick, beautiful roots dancing with excitement as he spoke. You two are in something. I don't know what it is, but you guys are in something. Some people call it a relationship, some call it friendship, some call it love, but you two are in something. You gazed at each other, then with the same open-eyed wonder that keeps startling you at various intervals since you met. The two of you, like headphone wires dangling, caught up in this something, a happy accident, a messy miracle. And I really love the comparison of the headphone wires tangled. It's such a casual thing to notice in your home, right? Having your headphone wires all tangled up, and I love looking at it like this happy accident, messy miracle being so intertwined with each other. I don't know. Let's see, what else? Here they are hanging out at the main character's mother's house. It's about two people who are falling in love and they're at her mother's house. Anyway, it's Saturday night. Everywhere in the city, people are rebelling against their weekly duties, filling up pubs and bars and dance floors. Whatever warmth was teased earlier in the winter must have been delusion. You spent the days indoors, the mornings slipping by at your desk where you flicked through a book of images. Roy de Caravas, The Sound I Saw, and you wrote a little. Not much, but something. You wrote something. The rest of the day, a blanket draped over you, poring over the pages of a novel. Sadie Smith's N.W. I love her writing, her mother says. She's my favorite writer, and W is the book I return to most. Perhaps that is how we should frame this question forever. Rather than asking, what is your favorite work? Let's ask what continues to pull you back. For me, that is definitely 100% this book. I actually bring it with me if I am going somewhere and I feel anxious or something, and I want something to read that is familiar to me and I find comfort in. I found myself putting this book in my bag multiple times, and yeah, I really enjoy this one. But let's go to the next one, and I will try to maybe read a little more. But because I have a whole video with this one and I've read it out loud multiple times, it's not, just not in the mood for that one right now. But this is my comfort go-to summer romance novel. It's Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. And this follows Sam and Percy. And Percy's family buys a home by a lake, and her neighbor is Sam and his brother Charlie and their mother Sue. And she befriends 17 years ago. I'd never had a boy in my bedroom until that first evening when Charlie dropped Sam off on the doorstep of our cottage. As soon as we were alone, I was tongue-tied, with nerves. Sam didn't seem to have the same problem. "So, what kind of name is Persephone?" he asked, stuffing a third Oreo into his mouth. We were sitting on the floor, door open at Mom's insistence. Given how sullen he was when we met, he was a lot chattier than I expected. Within minutes, I learned he had lived next door all his life. He was also starting 8th grade in the fall, and that he liked Weezer well enough, but the shirt was actually a hand-me-down from his brother. "Almost all my clothes are," he explained matter-of-factly. Mom hadn't looked happy when I asked if Sam could stay for the evening. "I don't know if that's the best idea, Persephone," she said slowly, right in front of him, then turned to Dad for his input. I think it was less about Sam's boyness and more that Mom wanted to keep me away from other teenagers for at least 2 months before we go back into the city. "She needs to have a friend, Diane," he replied, to complete my mortification. Letting my hair fall across my face, I grabbed Sam by the arm and pulled him towards the stairs. It took 5 minutes for Mom to check on us, holding a plate of Oreos like she did when I was 6. I was surprised she didn't bring glasses of milk. We were munching on the cookies, just speckled with dark crumbs, when Sam asked me about my name. "It's from Greek mythology," I told him. "My parents are total geeks. Persephone is the goddess of the underworld. It doesn't really suit me." He studied the creature from the Black Lagoon poster and the stack of horror paperbacks on my bedside table, then fixed his gaze on me, one eyebrow raised. "I don't know, goddess of the underworld. Seems like it suits you. Sounds pretty cool to me." He trailed off, his expression turning serious. "Persephone, Persephone." He rolled my name around in his mouth like he was trying to figure out how it tasted. "I like it." "What's Sam short for?" I asked, my hands and neck heating. "Samuel." "Nope," he smirked. "Samson, Samwise." He jerked his head back like I'd surprised him. "Lord of the Rings. Nice." His voice cracked over the nice, and he gave me an off-kilter grin that sent another thrill zipping through my chest. "But nope, it's just Sam. My mom likes one-syllable names for boys, like Sam and Charles. She says they're stronger when they're short, but sometimes when she's really pissed, she calls me Samuel. She says it gives her more to work with." I laughed at this, and his grin turned into a full-blown smile, one side slightly higher than the other. He had this easy way about him, like he wasn't trying to please anyone. I liked it. I wanted to be just like that. I was polishing off a cookie when Sam spoke again. "So, what did your dad mean downstairs?" I feigned confusion. Fiend or feign, I don't know. I'd been hoping he somehow hadn't heard. Sam squinted and added quietly, "About you needing to have a friend." I was a social outcast, I was known for two things at my school: my love of horror music, and my friendship bracelets. I wove them in elaborate patterns, but that was secondary to picking just the right colors. I carefully chose each palette to reflect the wearer's personality. Delilah's was pink and deep reds, feminine and powerful. My own was a trendy mix of neon orange, neon pink, peach, white, and grey. Delilah had always been the prettiest, most popular girl in our class, and even though the other kids liked me, I knew my status was due to my proximity to her. When I got requests for bracelets from every girl in our class, and even a few of the 8th graders, I felt like I finally had my own thing, aside from being Delilah's funny sidekick. I felt creative and cool and interesting, but then one day I found the bracelets I'd made for my 3 best friends cut up in little pieces in my desk. "Who gave it to you?" Sam asked. "Oh, well, no one did. I made it myself." "The pattern is really cool." "Thanks." I perked up. "I've been practicing all year. I thought the neons and the peach were kind of funky together." "Definitely," he said, leaning closer. "Could you make me one?" he asked, looking back up at me. He wasn't kidding. I hopped up and dug out the embroidery floss kit from my desk. I placed the small wooden box with my initials carved on top on the floor between us. "I've got a bunch of different colors, but I'm not sure if I have anything you'll like," I said, pulling out the rainbow loops of thread. I'd never done one for a boy before, but tell me what you're into, and if I don't have it, I can get Mom to take me into town to see if we can find it. Usually, I know people a little better before I make them. It might sound silly, but I try to match the colors to their personality. "That doesn't sound silly," he said. "So what do those colors say about you?" He reached out and tugged on one of the strings dangling from my wrist. His hands were like his feet, too big for his body. They reminded me of the oversized paws of a German Shepherd puppy. "Well, they don't really mean anything," I stammered. "I just thought it was a sophisticated palette." I returned to organizing the embroidery floss, lining them up in a tidy row from light to dark on the wood floor between us. "Maybe I could make it blue to match your eyes," I said, thinking aloud. "I don't have a ton of blue, so I'll just need to get a few more shades." I glanced at Sam to see what he thought, except he wasn't looking at the floss. He was staring right at me. "That's okay," he said. "I want it to be just like yours." And I just thought that was really sweet. I found that she can describe the childlike conversations really well, the interaction, the way that their brains are working, I guess, within the interaction. I really liked that. Then I have a passage a couple years later, also in the past, when they are 16, around 16 or something. It was a dry summer with fire bans across the country, and I was a tightly wound ball of frustrated teenage sexual energy. Sam picked me up on the way back from his morning run to swim just like the year before, and on the walk over to his place, I couldn't stop staring at the way his shirt clung to his stomach, or the drops of sweat running down his forehead and neck. Now that he was 16, Sam was allowed to drive the banana boat, and we took it to the town dock for a couple of ice creams early one evening in July. We sat on the bench by the water, finishing our cones, debating the merits of animal dissection in biology class, when Sam leaned over and ran his tongue around the rim of my cone, catching the drip of pink and blue. He'd done the same thing last summer, but this was the sexiest thing I'd ever seen. "You've got the taste buds of a 5-year-old, he said, as I stared at him with wide eyes. "You licked my ice cream." "Yeah, convince me to keep seeing Mason, saying there was no point waiting around for my summer boy to get a clue. But I had explained to Sam on multiple occasions that Mason was not my boyfriend and that we were dating, but it wasn't serious. Neither Sam nor Mason seemed to understand the distinction. For the millionth time, Mason is not my boyfriend. But you kiss him, Sam said. Yeah, sure, it's no big deal, I replied, not sure where he was going. He took a bite out of his cone, then squinted at me. Would you think it was a big deal if I told you I kissed someone? My heart exploded into tiny particles. You kissed someone, I whispered. I could tell Sam was nervous because he broke eye contact and looked out at the bay. Yeah, Maeve O'Connor at the end of the year dance. I hated Maeve O'Connor. I wanted to murder Maeve O'Connor. Maeve is a pretty name, I choked out. His blue eyes met mine again, and he pushed his hair off his face. It was no big deal. And what I loved about this is just how incredibly 16 coded this part was, and the silent crush, and I don't know, the silence is just really loud in this, and the tension is just really there in still a very wholesome way. I think it's very well written, it's very summery. This book reads like the way sunscreen smells. That's all I can say about it, and I hope that you liked the passages that I read. Next I have two mythology retellings, which is funny because it was mentioned saw were mostly slaves. They'd been taken in from warfare or bred from those who were. During the day they poured wine and scrubbed floors and kept the kitchen. At night they belonged to the soldiers or foster boys, to visiting kings, or Peleus himself. The swollen bellies that followed were not a thing of shame, they were profit, more slaves. Sometimes there were mutual satisfaction and even affection. At least that is what the men who spoke of them believed. It would have been easy, infinitely easy, for Achilles or I to have petted one of these girls ourselves. At 13 we were almost late to do so, especially him, as princes were known for their appetites. Instead, we watched in silence as the foster boys pulled girls onto their laps, or Peleus summoned the prettiest to his room after dinner. Once I even heard the king offer her to his son. He answered almost diffidently, "I am tired tonight." Later, as we walked back to our room, he avoided my eyes. And I was shy and silent with all but Achilles. I could scarcely talk to the other boys, let alone a girl. As a comrade of the prince, I suppose I would not have had to speak. A gesture or a look would have been enough. But such a thing did not occur to me. That feeling that stirred in me at night seemed strangely distant from those serving girls with their lowered eyes in obedience. I watched a boy fumbling at a girl's dress, the dull look on her face as she poured his wine. I did not wish for such a thing. One night we had stayed late in Peleus's chamber. Achilles was on the floor, an arm thrown beneath his head for a pillow. I sat more formally in a chair. It was not just because of Peleus. I did not like the sprawling length of my new limbs. The old king's eyes were half closed. He was telling us a story. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go somewhere else. This is chapter 26. It's in the Trojan War, and the bond between Patroclus and Achilles is much, much more developed now. In the distance, two men are walking towards us up to the long stretch of the beach, wearing the bright purple of Agamemnon's camp, stamped with the symbol of heralds. I know them, Talthybius and Eurybates, Agamemnon's chief messengers, honored as men of discretion, close to the high king's ear. Hate knots my throat. I want them dead. They are close now, passing the glaring Myrmidon guards, who rattle their armor threateningly. They stop 10 paces around us. They stop 10 paces from us. Enough, perhaps they think, to be able to escape. I indulge myself in vicious images. Achilles leaping up to snap their necks, leaving them limp as dead rabbits in a hunter's hand. They stutter out a greeting, feet shifting, eyes down. Then, "We have come to take custody of the girl." Achilles answers them, cold and bitter, but wryly so, his anger banked and shielded. He is giving a show, I know, of grace, of tolerance, and my teeth clench at the calmness in his tone. He likes this image of himself, the wronged young man, stoically accepting the theft of his prize, the martyrdom, for the whole camp to see. I hear my name and I see them looking at me. I am to get Briseis. Let's see. The reason why I tapped this part was because I thought it was so funny how he said Talthybius and I know them, Talthybius and Eurybates, Agamemnon's chief messengers, honored as men of discretion, close to the high king's ear. Hate knots my throat. I want them dead. Because I feel like he doesn't speak in that way throughout the book, and just I want them dead felt so direct and like such a contrast from the rest of what what's being described, that I thought that it was interesting. Then last, but certainly not least, we've got Circe by Madeline Miller. This is definitely one that's in my top 5 favorite books. I'll read the back to you. In the house of Helios, god of the sun and mightiest of the Titans, a daughter is born. Circe is strange, not powerful and terrible like her father, not gorgeous and mercenary like her mother, but she has a dark power of her own, witchcraft. When Circe's gift threatens the gods, she is banished to the island of Aeaea, where she hones her occult craft, casting spells, gathering strange herbs, and taming wild beasts. Yet a woman who stands alone cannot live in peace for long, and among her island's guests is an unexpected visitor, the mortal Odysseus, from whom Circe will risk everything. Circe's tale is a vivid epic of family rivalry, love, and loss. The inextinguishable song of a woman's burning hot and bright. The inextinguishable song of a woman burning hot and bright in the darkness of a man's world. Feminist masterpiece, for sure. I love it. Let's see. Here she is, spending time with Daedalus. I'm having a hard time finding the words to give context to this, but I'm just going to hope that you are asleep already and you don't really even notice what I'm reading anymore. We finished our meal and I walked the dark corridor back to my room. The evening had been pleasant, but I felt roiled and muddy. My mind, like river silt, stirred up from its bed. I could not stop hearing Daedalus talking of his freedom. There had been such yearning in his voice, and bitterness too. At least I had earned my exile, but Daedalus was innocent, kept only as a trophy for my sister and Minos's vanity. I thought of his eyes when he had spoken of Icarus, that pure, shining love. To my sister, it was no more than a tool, a sword to hang over his head and make him her slave. I remembered the pleasure on her face when she had ordered him to cut her open. She had the same look when I had stepped through her door. I had been so consumed with the Minotaur that I had not seen what a triumph this has all been for her. Not just the monster and her new fame, but everything that went with it. Daedalus forced into complicity, Minos cringing and humiliated, and all of the Crete held hostage to fear. And me, I was a triumph too. She might have summoned others, but I had always been the dog she liked to whip. She had known how useful I would be, dutifully cleaning her messes, protecting Daedalus, seeing the monster safely contained, and all the while she could laugh from her golden couch. Do you like my new pet? I give her nothing but blows, yet see how she runs to my whistle. My stomach burned. I turned away from my cell. I walked as a god, unseen, past the drowsing guards, past the night servants. I reached the door of my sister's room and stepped through it. I stood over her bed. She was alone. My sister trusted her sleep to none but herself. I had felt the spells when I passed the threshold, but they could not stop me. Why did you summon me here? I demanded. Let me hear you admit it. Her eyes opened at once, keen, as if she had been expecting me. It was a gift, of course. Who else would have enjoyed seeing me bleed so much? I can think of 1,000. She smiled, a cat smile. It was always more fun to play with a live mouse. What a shame it is that you can't use your new binding spell on Scylla. But of course you would need her mother's blood. I don't think that shark, Catraeus, will oblige you. I had thought of it already. Persephone always knew